Awesome. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Kylie Work. I'm a senior attorney in the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. And next to me is Stephen James, also a senior attorney at the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. And behind us, would you like to introduce yourselves?
I'm Pamela. I'm the Assistant Director of Water Policy. Very nice to meet you all.
Okay. I now call to order this rule workshop concerning amendments to 5 and 20, the proposed rule for soil and water conservation districts. This workshop was announced in volume 48, issue 150 of the Florida Administrative Weekly. Today is August 17, 2022. And as I said before, my name is Kylie Work and I am a senior attorney with FDAC. And I will be the moderator for this rule workshop. And again, seated with me is Stephen James. So this rulemaking is about 5 and 20. The purpose of a rule workshop is to have an open exchange of ideas and interaction between interested parties and the department in the development of our rule language. This hearing is being recorded and the recording will become part of the record. The record will also include any documents, written statements, and exhibits submitted during this workshop. This workshop is scheduled for 2 hours. A lot of long meeting. If the full time is needed, we will take a break at the halfway point. We'll take it when we need it if we need it. And the restrooms are located out here. We have requested that all attendees sign in with their name, organization they are representing, and a contact address, email, and phone number. This document will be placed as well in the rule record file. Speakers will be called upon in the order they have signed in for this meeting if you have. If you did not sign in and you are wishing to speak, you will be given an opportunity after those who signed up to speak. Each individual will be allowed 3 minutes to present your comments for record. And because of because of the number of individuals present who wish to speak both in person and on Zoom, I will be regulating your speaking time in order to accommodate all interested speakers. If you have written comments, please provide a copy to the moderator at the end of the meeting for the rule record. The public record for written comments will stay open September 9th, close of business. So you can submit written comments to the department until September 9th at close of business. You may forward all written comments to the address located in the proposed rule. And we will have the email address written down if you need it. And I'm sure Pam will put it in the Zoom chat as well. All right, at this time, I'm going to ask Stephen James to discuss the proposed actions and then we will hear public comments.
Thanks, Kylie. I'm going to stand up here so I can actually see you and see the screen at the same time while staying on camera. I think do I have to do that as well? I have a face for radio, so I'll try to get this done. First of all, thank you all for being here. I know that this is very important for you to take time out of your day and come down here and participate. We appreciate it, and we welcome your comments either today on the record, or as she said, you've got until September 9th if you want to take some time to draft something and submit it, and all those comments will be taken into consideration before the final draft is done. So again, we're here. This is a new rule. We have 5M is a chapter in the Florida Administrative Code designated for the department. And so this will be a new rule, 5M20, to go up to 19. So this is a brand new rule that we have been asked to adopt pursuant to legislative direction. You shall adopt, so we shall adopt. So let's go through this rule. And the rule, as you know, everybody here, ooh, hey, technology just kicked in. As you know, this rule is concerning soil and water conservation districts, which is regulated by statute 582. I'm sure most of you are aware of 582. But this is some of the new language of the bill. I'm sure many of you have seen the bill. 1078 is the number. Right now we're at committee substitute for committee substitute for committee substitute for 1078. And so what it says is, and what this rule concerns is this provision, that every district now must be subdivided. This seems to go on and off, but I'll try to I'll project a little bit. Must be subdivided into 5. So all soil and water conservation districts must have 5 subdivisions or sub-districts, as we call them. So we're allowed to decide whether if a county has 5 commission districts, we can use those, say, you know, hey, these are your districts. If it has 5 school board districts, say, hey, use those same districts, same boundaries, use those, and those are your number of districts. But in the yellow, you see, if the county does not have 5 of either commission or school board sub-districts, or if a soil and water conservation district is made up of more than one county, there's one of those on the panhandle, then you, the Department of Agriculture,
Sorry, just try not to move a lot and put your hand a little bit up in the microphone so it doesn't change so much. I'm sorry.
I'll do my best. So in those instances, as I said, if there's not 5, or if a soil and water district is part of more than one county, then you, a Department of Agriculture, shall subdivide the district into 5 number subdivisions as nearly equal in area as practicable to ensure geographic representation. So that's what we're here to do. This is what this rule is about, subdivision of those districts. We want to go forward. So that's what this rule is. It's about the subdivision. So the first part of the rule is a definition section. Those rules put terms that are defined within that rule in the beginning and say, these are the terms we're using, we'll define them, this is what they mean. And what we propose is just saying every term that's defined in 582, and there are a lot of terms in 582 that are defined, commission, council, department, district, landowner, qualified elected supervisor, those sorts of things. So what we've said is the definitions of those terms are the same as they are in the statute. And then there's one new one, which is a sub-district. And that we took right out of the bill, and a sub-district means one of the 5 in which each has been subdivided and attached. As practicable, the boundaries of either of the 5 commission districts or 5 school board districts, and then in the other case, where they're not 5, or they go across county boundaries, and that's the definition of sub-district. So you can go on to the next slide if you would, please. So then in 5M 20.002, and this is how we will organize those 5 sub-districts. And we're going to adopt these maps, right? And we have to adopt the maps and then incorporate them into the rule. So that's what we're doing. We're incorporating these maps into the rule. Now this is, if you go back 1 second, and that is an email there that you could get in touch with us at that email right there, and that will be left in the rule too. If anybody has comments or anything, you can send it to there. But everything is going to be available online as we okay, go ahead. So, as I said, if there's 5 county commission districts, then we can use those maps and say soil and water conservation districts are the same boundaries as those commission districts. And you'll see all of these soil and water districts go up again. All of these, Choctawhatchee River soil and water, that's really Walton County. And Holmes Creek, that's really Holmes County, and all within Holmes County. Go to the next one. You've got some of these other named soil and water districts like Orange Hill and Manatee River and Tupelo, and Yellow River and Peace River. And those are all within one county. So we can still use those county commission districts and those boundaries. So as I said, we've got 49 of those. We're just going to adopt the maps that those counties already have, so we don't have to reinvent that wheel. Okay. Hillsborough is an interesting county. They are, the commissions, there are more commissioners than 5. And a couple of them are at large, so there's no actually sub-district, they're at large over the whole county. So, but they do have a school board with 5, and so we've adopted the school board district boundaries for the Hillsborough district, soil water conservation district. So that's just Hillsborough school board. Go ahead. So now we get to the point where we've got 6 more to do, and those are the ones that we need to draw the maps for. As you may know, the Department of Agriculture is not a map drawing agency. It's not our forte. We don't do that sort of thing typically. So what we have done is worked with 3ACT, which is the Florida Resources and Environmental Analysis Center at Florida State University. I know a lot of you folks are University of Florida people or other universities. They just happen to be right across the street from us in Tallahassee. No, but we have a great research center there, great GIS department, and they can just move these maps and just kind of, how does this work? How does this work? We move a district and do all that stuff. So we were working with this center, 3ACT, Florida State, and as you can read for yourself, they specialize in implementation of spatial information within communities and local governments, established in 1969. And this is the gentleman, the director, Steve Hodge, that we've been working with, and he's been with Florida State since 1984. He's the principal researcher in GIS systems and has interest in all these mapping, land surveying, databases. So with Stephen's help, we started drafting these maps. And remember, they have to be as equal as practicable in area. So it's not population. Okay, we want to make sure that the same number of people or voters are in each district. It's area. It's equal in area as practical, which is kind of a different deal, right? So we had to take these land areas of some of these larger counties, and as you can see here, Broward, Duval, Orange, Palm Beach, South Dade are very large populous counties with large land areas. Chipola, the reason why that is on this list is because it crosses the boundary of 2 counties. Remember why I said if it crosses 2 counties, we also will have to draw a map. So these are the 6 that we were tasked with drawing a map to subdivide into 5 these soil and water districts. So Broward, we'll start with Broward. We'll go south and go to Broward. Now this is all the area to the west there. That's all in Broward County, as you can see from the boundary line in red. But there's nobody that lives out there. There's no residents. It's all Everglades, water control areas, and the like, right? So we do this map, and as you can see, am I standing in the way? As you can see, the percentages are very, very close. 20, 19, 19, 20, 21%. So that's about as close as practicable as we could get here, moving everything around. I will point out to you that the boundaries of each sub-district are also precincts. So we're not reinventing lines, and saying, hey, supervisor of elections, go down, 34th Street and make a turn there, and it goes around the lake, and they're all precincts. So when you manipulate by GIS these boundaries, you're taking full precincts and moving them around. So it's a lot easier for supervisors of elections to determine what sub-district is what, and and those candidates that represent those districts a lot easier to determine. So that's Broward County right there. What's the next one? Duval. So we'll go up north, the Jacksonville area. And this is the Duval district. You can see, very similar, sub-districts that are very close in geographic area, as close as practical. Okay? So as you move things around, you don't want to get too crazy, making one too big, one too small. And so that's what we have here, 5 districts in Duval County, split up in almost equivalent land areas. We go to Orange County, in the middle of the state. And Orange County is split up like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, again, very, very close in area. And we're using, again, the same thing, all the precincts are in total. We don't split up a precinct, put one in one sub-district, one in the other. So this is your map that we're proposing for the Orange County Soil and Water Conservation District. Next up is Palm Beach. And Palm Beach is crazy as well. As you can see, the boundary of Palm Beach County goes into Lake Okeechobee. I don't know how you would separate land area there with nobody that lives in the lake, but voters that are living in the lake. But we split that up as best we could. There's nobody living in the Loxahatchee Reserve either, although there may be some agricultural activity. So we've included that. So again, they're not perfect. The first one you saw was almost perfect, 20%, 20%, 20%. They're not perfect, but they're as close as we can get, moving those around GIS-wise to get the full precinct. And you don't want some weird looking, it looks like it's gerrymandered, right? There's enough of that going on. So this is what we come up with for Palm Beach County. The next one, South Dade. And this is down in the Miami area, as we know, and this is the way this is split up. Very difficult to move those around and get perfect districts, but it's very, very close, 18%, 18%, 20%, 19%, and 26%. And a lot of that larger area there in District 1, not a real populous area either. So that's kind of how we split that up. So that's the South Miami-Dade County Soil and Water Conservation District. I guess there's one more, would that be the Chipola? And again, this is 2 counties that make up this one soil and water conservation district. So what we decided to do was, we need 5. So let's put 2 in one county, let's put 2 in the other county, and then let's split down the middle, the 5th district, so it's kind of half and half. There was some discussion. Well, you don't want it to lean too much toward one county over the other, or else maybe you might have a majority on the district for years to come. So we actually looked here at population also, and wanted to get as equal, not so much in land area, but in population as well. So that vote in that district that spans the river there, and I believe the capital of each county seat is right across that river in each of those counties. So it's close.
Can you speak up a little bit to chat?
Sure.
Sorry.
I've got my mouth right against the mic. I apologize to those that are listening online. I'm trying to keep my mouth off of the microphone, but as close as possible. It's just going in and out. So that is the Chipola district. Are there other slides after this? So essentially, as I said, this bill involves a lot of things, and there are a lot of questions, but this rule is only about how we subdivide into 5, which is what our legislative directive is. Hey, department, it's on you to subdivide. So again, just in summary, if the soil and water district is totally within one county, and it has 5 commissions or 5 school board districts, we can use those, which we have in 50 of the 56. 49 actually, 49 county commissions and 1 school district. And then the other 6, we actually had to draw the maps, and you've seen those maps. So that's essentially the rule. There's not any more to it than that. But what we've done is, as we're drafting the rule, we tell you each county or each soil and water district within that county, and then what is the subdivision, where can you find it? We're going to include links so you can link on there, and when the rule is final, you go, each one of those 56 will have a link, including these 6, with a link to these maps, assuming that they're not changed in any way between the proposed rule and the final rule. So that's basically it in a nutshell for the rule 5M20. I guess we have a period of questions and answers, and I'm certainly willing to entertain any questions that you might have. Well, why don't we start with the people in the room? I think we can do that relatively easily. And then if we want to ask people online, if they have questions as well. I'm just curious, does anybody here have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
My first question is.
Let me come over there just in case people online want to hear what you have to say. Sometimes they do these press conferences and you only hear the answer.
My first question is, what are the dates of enforcement that the supervisors have to serve in these map districts? And the follow-up to that is, do they have to actually live in that map district that you're drawing?
The date of enforcement.
Yeah, because it says something about 2023 bill.
Right, so it says by January 1, if we need to have these maps done. So this rule will have to be published in the administrative register, and it will have to be final by January 1 of 2023.
So if you have a supervisor that's elected in November of this election, they're sworn in January.
That's right.
So if they're sworn in January, and you have 2 or 3 living in the same map district, what happens?
This election in November, I don't believe has any bearing on these subdivisions.
So they'll serve their term
They'll likely serve their term.
in the map.
That's really a question for another entity, you know, a supervisor election. And your second question,
Supervisor elections don't know the answer.
you know, and I'll be honest with you, hardly anyone knows the answer to many of the questions substantively about the legislature. There's a lot of questions, not the least of which is, do I have to reside in Southern? And there are people, many people on both sides saying yes, some people saying no. There are arguments on both sides of yes and no. And I will just tell you that it's the men and women that wear robes
We'll make that.
that will ultimately decide that question. But I can tell you that there are arguments on both sides. I don't think I need to live in the subdivision because of this. And I think you do have to live because of this. And we're certainly not in a position to say, well, it's our opinion that is one way or another, because we just don't make those decisions.
That's what we're, told by responsibility.
You know, if it's challenged and somebody tells you it's a no-brainer, it's a done deal, it's a slam dunk, men and women in rows would say, well, yes. And statutory interpretation. Now, I can also tell you that if it is that confusing, and the supervisor of elections may not have an answer, and the Department of State may not have an answer, then perhaps the legislature goes back and says, hey, why don't we revisit this legislation in the coming session? So let's clarify that, which is a distinct possibility.
Who takes it to
Oh,
the
hold on
road?
one second. I think I-
Who takes it to the road?
Well, typically it would be a constituent. Just to clarify for those in the room and those online, apologies if you already know this, but I feel like it's important to mention at every rule workshop. FDAX as an executive branch agency is only capable of creating rules and policies to the extent to which the legislature has allowed us to do in the bill. So anytime you have a question during this workshop and it seems like we're not giving you an answer, it typically is because the bill has not given us authority to create a rule or policy regarding your question. So we're not trying to blow you off. It's more just that lovely checks and balances thing that we all learned about in fifth grade civics. We're only able to implement to the extent the legislature has allowed us. And sometimes questions like this do come up that the legislature might not have thought about or might not have created I don't mean that like they didn't think about it, but sometimes there's very specific things where it's not always planned in policy. And like Steve and James mentioned, that typically is addressed in the next session if that becomes an issue. So if the situation you're talking about or anything that's brought up in questions today, we don't have an answer for, or if it becomes an issue, it'll likely be addressed in the next legislative session, which is early in 2023. I hope that helps.
Thank you. And everything she says is true. So, you know, who might bring a challenge? You don't know, somebody who's adversely affected, you know, a candidate for office or something like that brings a lawsuit. And so
It doesn't have to be someone who was affected.
it's substantially affected by it. So they have standing to challenge.
There has to be some adverse effect or damage for someone to be able to bring. So you wouldn't be able to bring the case just because you're thinking it might happen. It actually has to happen and then someone be adversely affected.
So basically, the scenario would be, you have a supervisor, you have two supervisors that live in the same district, unless somebody contests that, it's gonna happen. Is that a good interpretation of what you discussed? Or a result of the district in the same scenario?
Well, however, they've been elected in the past, right? And so now you have a new law that governs how elections shall take place. So somebody might say it's not consistent with the new law and they would challenge based on it. So
But if it's not challenged, they'll just walk along, right? Or
it's likely,
Yeah.
it's likely. So again, I don't mean to cut anybody short, but I was hoping to take questions as to this particular rulemaking effort.
Oh,
I
it was, because I was asking about that.
Gotcha,
I am probably gonna do,
gotcha. Answer the jump question?
yes.
Let me give this to you just in case somebody wants to give a good question.
Okay, my question was, you mentioned, the final release of the final rule, will the link to the map, from preview beforehand, and then at final rule, is there another comment period? And the reason for my question, page 6, number 32 for Okeechobee District. If you all pick our commission 2016 map based on population, or do we have a December 2021 map that our commission follows?
We had staff, address your latest question first. Our staff went and called all of the governments and asked for maps, and we printed hard copies and tried to get links and all that stuff, but if there is an updated map that is not listed in our draft, we will update. So, and will those links be, yes, before the rule is final, all those links, right now, we don't have the exact link, we have links that we have the maps that we can find them internally, but we want them to all be like on a one database. So you just click on it and if you see the reference numbers in the proposed rule with the X's, there'll be a unique identifying number for each of those maps. They will be up and working at the time the final rule is done.
Because we can still comment.
I'll let Kylie talk about the rulemaking process itself and comment.
Can we all speak up a little bit when you guys are doing your questions so that people online can also hear them, please?
Yeah,
And everyone just,
absolutely.
thank you.
Am I projecting?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So just to explain the rulemaking process as well, so as you can see in the room right now, those links are exited, like you mentioned. Those links are not filled in until we submit the rule for adoption, just in case the maps continue to change so that we don't have to update the link every time we change the rule text. So if you want to see the maps, before the rule is submitted for adoption, they will be included in all of the, notices in the Florida Administrative Register. And they will likely also be included on any emails to our interested parties list. And you can also email the department and ask for them as well.
Yeah, there's your email address.
Yeah. So we're required to submit these maps along with the rule text. So it's not like they're going to be hidden and then just like, surprise, here they are when the rule is final. We're required to continuously make sure the public is aware of any changes that we make to the maps. I hope that helps explain the process a little bit more. And when in doubt, if you have any questions, always email the department and we will help answer.
And that's one of the things when you're doing a rule like this, where districts may change, right, over the course, of the next year, next 2 years, next 3 years. You don't want to have to go back and do a rule change every single time one of those 56 districts changes a little bit, And of course, every 10 years they do redistricting and stuff like that. And so it's like, oh, we go back in a rulemaking every time there's just one set of districts that changes. So hopefully we can get out of that circumstance. Other questions of folks here? Okay. You.
Sorry.
Let me give you the microphone so we can hear you. Now it's working.
So who makes the determination if a county uses DCC district lines or the school board district lines? Is that FX's role? Okay. And then my next question is, for future rulemaking sessions, when can we expect to see the materials that will be presented, such as what was presented today? Is there a rule, like we have to post our board meetings so many days in advance of the board meeting? Is there a time period? Because we all drove a really long ways to be here today. So I'd kind of like to know what we're going to be workshopping document-wise.
Okay, so the way that the rulemaking process works is this is currently a notice of rule development. We are in NRD, correct? So technically, we are in the first stage of the rulemaking process. A lot of times an NRD does not have rule text because of the nature of this kind of program. We decided obviously to do rule text so that you're able to give comments before we submit proposed language to the legislature. So when we submit proposed language to the legislature, that is what's called a notice of proposed rule. And that will also have the maps in it, it'll have rule text. And we submit it to the legislature and the public because the legislature also has to tell us if we've overstepped the authority that they gave us. So when that happens, when we submit an NPR, a 21-day comment period begins. So you have 3 weeks from the time that we submit that NPR in the Florida Administrative Register, which will also be emailed to the interested parties list. Like, we'll make sure it's on our website. We'll make sure it's blasted everywhere we can. You'll have 21 days from that to submit comments as well. That 21-day comment period is extremely important because if we make any changes to the text or maps after the NPR, we are only allowed to make changes based off comments. We cannot make changes just because we want to. So the legislature sometimes will give us comments and then the public will give us comments. So that 21-day period is extremely important. And if it's received after the 21 days, it doesn't count. We can't do a change based off your comment. So that 21-day period is extremely important. And we'll make sure that everyone is aware, like this is starting a 21-day comment period. And then based off that comment period, if we need to make changes, we'll submit what's called a notice of change. which is basically saying like, hey, here's the amended version of what we initially submitted in the NPR. And that will then start a 45-day clock, into which we have 45 days to then finalize the rule for adoption. So does that help clarify the timeline for everyone? Also on the NPR stage, anyone in the public is allowed to request an additional hearing based off the proposed language. We are also, as an agency, allowed to just have a hearing because we want to, but it is everyone's right as a citizen of the state of Florida to also request a hearing based off the NPR proposed language. And then we will have essentially another one like this, where you'll be given the opportunity to submit comments during that 21-day period, which again is important because that's the only way we can make changes. Does that help? Awesome. Oh, sorry, one more stage. When we submit the rule for adoption, 21 days after that, when in doubt, the number always 21 days for rulemaking. 21 days after submitting the rule for adoption is when it takes effect. So because it has to be in effect by January 1st, we have to submit it for adoption 21 days prior to January 1st. So just to give you a little bit more clarification on that timeline.
Right, and great points there. And one of those key points is that once we propose a rule, we can't change it. We can only change it based on either what the JAPC, the Joint Administrative Procedures Committee, says, hey, we need you to tweak something here, or comments from you folks, comments from the public, like yours, ma'am, who said, hey, I don't think that's the latest map. I think there's a new one. So we can do a notice of proposed change and say, based on comments, we're going to change that map to the new one. But we're not allowed to just put a rule in there and then let the public know that we're doing something and then we're going to do something else. You're not allowed to do that. So we can only make those changes based on public comment, based on JAPC's comment. That's a very good point. Other questions on the rule?
Have some from online, but some
Okay.
people here have already asked.
Okay. Just hand this to.
Okay, a lot of these are substantive, so I will read them and then Stephen will answer. Okay, so Peggy at Jackson SWCD asked to confirm the statute has not stipulated if the supervisors have to live inside the boundary of a VOC district they are over. Correct. And we've addressed that. Okay, Betty Jo Tompkins asked, it appears that no consideration was given to the percentage of agriculture within any subdistrict. Is that correct?
Well, again, the mandate, and I don't know, Pam, can you go back to that first slide? I believe it was. The department shall subdivide the district into 5 numbered subdivisions as nearly equal in area as practicable to ensure geographic representation within that district's body. So there's nothing that authorizes us to look at anything but that a geographical equivalence. So as Kylie mentioned earlier, we can only promulgate rules within the authority granted to us by the legislature.
And the legislature will comment on something that meticulous. So that's why we have to be so careful when we're creating these rules. Jennifer Webb asked, it was an area calculation without consideration of population density or land usage. Same answer. The statute required area. Patrick Floto asked, if the boundaries are not based on school board / county commission districts, in our case, they are based on precincts without splits. Where can we obtain a shapefile of these boundaries?
Not sure I understood the question. Could you read that again?
Yes. If the boundaries are not based on school board / county commission districts, in our case, are they, I'm going to assume that it is supposed to say, are they based on precincts without splits?
And the answer there is yes, as I indicated, we have not, thus far, in this proposed rule, split up any precinct. So as we're, manipulating the maps to,
You have to move your hand up because you're blocking the entire.
as you, start to split them into five, and you say, well, this one's too big, let's move some of that district over into this one, let's move some of this. Yeah, we're moving whole precincts. So, as I said, there's no, splitting of precincts. There has not been, while drafting, these proposed maps.
And to the second part of that question,
Shape file.
they could email to that agbnphelp@fdex.com,
Okay.
and we'll be sharing.
Yeah, so Patrick or anyone that would like to know to obtain a shape file of these boundaries, you can email that agbnphelp at fdex.gov, which I'm sure it'll be back on the screen and typed in the chat. Any other questions in person or online?
I'm sending you one more.
Okay.
iPad.
Gabby Milch asked, is there a website about this rule change or other requirements of SB 1078? So information will be updated on our website for statutory requirements, and then the website that you'll get the most rule change updates is the Florida Administrative Register, which is flrules.org.
Can you repeat that one more time?
Yep, flrules.org. If you open a website that looks like it was made when dial-up was popular, you're in the right place. Okay. Ann Bishop asked, when a precincts change, will this rule also be updated? For example, if they rezone our county commissioner's district, will this change then too?
It's my understanding that the links will be updated when the county's district maps are updated. So that we don't have to go back, as I mentioned before, and do a notice of rulemaking and go through this whole thing to redo a rule every time that happens. So I believe they'll be on a database that can update as need be.
Any other questions?
One more that I'm
Okay.
sending you.
And someone also asked if call participants can receive a written Q&A of questions and answers posed today. Potentially to the best of our ability, based on what was asked in person, we might be able to do that. So the next question is from the Chipola River District 4 that covers both counties. How will it be addressed during the election process? The election process, it'll be, this is a January effective date, so it won't be, at least not with us, be addressed during the November election. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, one more.
Yep.
So obviously, this was a responsibility of the Florida Department of Ag to draw these maps, and it was shared with me before today that your deadline was January 1, 2023. I'm assuming that if you pick apart the whole Senate Bill 1078, there's going to be a multitude of workshops coming up in 2023 to address other responsibilities of the department. Have y'all determined what else you're going to be responsible to interpret and rulemaking?
Well, let me see if I can answer that question. So is there anything else that we anticipate responsibility for that would require a rulemaking activities? And I would answer that in the negative at this point. There isn't. Remember, they may come back and clarify some of the points of of concern in this legislation next year. There may be something that comes back. But at this point, our only directive in Senate Bill 1078 is the department shall subdivide in this manner, and that's what this rule is, that we're subdividing in the manner as directed. So that's our only responsibility at this point for rulemaking. So interpretation, again, I mentioned the word interpretation, which is not for us to do, but for those who wear robes, as I said. And there may be an interpretation that somebody doesn't like, or is not what the legislature intended, because a lot of statutory interpretation in the judicial tribunals is based on, well, what did the legislature intend? What do they mean when they say this? So the courts will interpret, and then the legislature, if that's not their interpretation, they will change it to say, no, this is what we meant. But until such time as we're given additional direction, we don't suspect that there'll be additional rulemaking on this bill from the department's point.
What you just described is done through an amendment to the bill 278, or they didn't even do a whole one time?
It would be a completely different bill, different number, different session, would be, different presiding officers, probably go to different committees, all that sort of thing to be a brand new.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, Gabby Milch then asked again, the FDEX website area for soil and water districts. I do not have service, so I'm not able to pull up the link, but we'll send it in the chat. Our website can be confusing, but it's on the website, I promise. Okay, the next question was, I understand that this is in effect now. This is in effect no, but we have a vacancy in one seat that will be in another district after the election. Does the person appointed need to be from this district? Not our area, unfortunately. Going back to the distribution of agricultural activity within a sub-district, what happens if there are no active agricultural operators within a sub-district to run? Not our area, unfortunately. If the legislature thinks that agriculture is important, then why does the rule state that maps are to be drawn by size and not based on agriculture? Not even district populations are important. Again, the legislature and the statute directed us to draw it by area size. So we are just doing as directed by the legislature, and we are not authorized or allowed to do anything else. Any other questions?
Well, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you for making time out of the day. As I said, take advantage of the period with which to submit comments. Contact the email, the general email.
There.
Okay, awesome.
And I believe, as you said, the comment would be welcome until September the 9th, 10th.
September 9th.
September the
I can
9th.
say.
So if you want to just take some time and think about it and put together, and we will consider all the comments that we receive, and appreciate your participation. Very much.
So one more time, are there any other people who wish to speak on this rule? Okay, seeing none, as mentioned before, the public record for written comments will stay open until September 9th at the close of business on that day. You may forward all written comments to this email, and this workshop is now adjourned. Thank you for coming.